All right, guys. In some of my previous videos, I talked about some of the challenges that our Shopify stores have faced. And in this video, I really want to talk about marketing, how you can improve the marketing of your Shopify store if you're just starting off or really already making a couple of million in revenue per year. And I'll really talk about how to scale up to, for example, some of the stores I'll show you now making around 150,000 revenue per month on average. And also generally how to reduce the vulnerabilities that I think a lot of Shopify stores have, us included, and how we've really worked around to improving those operations. A very classical story, which I've also mentioned in some of my previous videos, is you have a store like this that, for example, if we just quickly go through some of the history, it's again making something like 150,000 revenue per month approach in Q4. In Q4, we managed to scale. So in November, I think we're making something like 230,000 revenue in November. In December, we continue scaling, obviously pretty classic with Christmas season. But then what happens is that we have a massive drop from December to January. And I mean, literally from whatever it was, 240K to below even 50K. And the question is why, right? And I think this is a very common story to see this type of volatility for Shopify stores in this kind of size segment. And even smaller stores probably have even more volatility. And of course, you need to first mention seasonality, right? There's a Q4 to Q1 seasonality. Obviously, Q4 is the busiest time of the year for e-commerce, pretty much all around the world for most products. And especially the jump from December to January is a big one. It's pretty natural. But on top of that, right, for example, this store, and actually with this store, we have a very similar story. So again, it's actually in terms of size, it's very similar. I think in December, this store was making actually a bit more, almost 300,000. And then the drop to January was just as drastic, if not even more drastic. I mean, the percent, anyway, you can calculate the percentages. But the point is actually why I chose those two stores in our portfolio, right, is that we were very vulnerable to paid CPC marketing. And that meant that we could scale aggressively. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? We could scale aggressively in November and December and really push our marketing budget. But then when in January our ROAS started to come down, we also had to aggressively scale back the marketing budget so we could continue staying profitable. And I think we took away a lot of learnings from having multiple stores going through this volatility, and not only December to January. This is just one example. There's obviously seasonality in different times of the year, and in any case, there's many, I think, approaches you can take in terms of marketing, how you can improve your marketing strategy overall, how you can be diversified, how you can be not only vulnerable to one marketing channel. And this is really, marketing is such a broad topic, but I'll really talk about marketing for Shopify stores, D2C, that I think is very common. And again, also stores that we have in our portfolio. So I can really speak from experience and specifically in this size range, right? I think obviously if you're a much bigger store, then some of those things will already be different. But I think if you're just starting off and scaling into your first couple million revenue per year, then this will be super applicable and hopefully also very transferable to your stores. So let's jump straight in. All right, guys, so let's talk about marketing and how you can improve the marketing for your Shopify store. So as per usual, I created a few nice slides, which will hopefully be helpful. The first one, I just put together the main marketing channels all in one slide, just I think to give an overview. Most people know about this, but I think it's just good to see everything on one slide and be aware of all the different options you have. Just quickly going through them, and again, hopefully you're already familiar with all of those. This is nothing crazy, but I think where it gets interesting is which combination of channels you decide to focus on and when, and kind of where do you lean into at what stages of your store. So starting off with paid marketing, I just talked about that, right? And our vulnerability to some of actually the paid marketing. Of course, each one has pros and cons, right? There is no one right answer. And I think a much bigger point, hopefully already the slide in and of itself tells you this, is the diversification between channels, especially actually when you're small. And I actually think a lot of people, only do TikTok or only do Facebook and Instagram ads, and they miss out on a lot of the other channels where, they could be also obviously, first of all, diversifying the revenue streams for that store, be way less volatile because of that diversification, and just have a more resilient store. And more resilient revenues, but choose not to. And again, there's always a trade-off, because if you are leaning into, your strength specifically into TikTok, that's also fine. But I think you need to be aware of those trade-offs. Anyway, so you have paid channels. Obviously, you have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Google, which I didn't even put here. But all the big platforms, them, have paid marketing channels, which you can obviously run for your Shopify store. Right there, I think it's important for you to really understand, is your product more pull marketing or push marketing? Many stores can actually be both, but obviously, the classic push marketing is like on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, where you really focus on the creative and the content. Have a separate video on that, where you really excite new customers who didn't even know about the product potentially, or in any case, you excite them to check out the product even though they weren't specifically searching for it in the first place, right? Versus pull marketing, where they are specifically searching for the product, for example, on Google, and then you have Google search ads that then lead them to your website and to your product page. The flip side of paid marketing is obviously organic. I just, again, added it as kind of an umbrella term here. Organic is obviously massive in and of itself. And again, you can do organic on each one of those channels, right? I think right now, TikTok organic is obviously kind of quite in the trend, right? Back in the day, it was Facebook and Instagram. And before that, it could have been many other platforms. Obviously, the attention in terms of where you can post organically changes. And here the trade-offs are very clear, right? Like paid marketing, obviously, you can start spending money, you need capital, and you can start spending money. But then if obviously you have a high ROAS, right, so high, ROI essentially on the marketing dollars you're spending, you can scale up very quickly. And you can, scale up very quickly to the stores that I, for example, just showed you now, making a couple of 100,000 revenue per month. Organic is where you need way less capital, right, but way more effort on your side, or again, the people you're working with, to actually create a lot of different content, post it organically, and it's a much longer and tedious process, right? Where, however, you don't need the capital, but you can still, get traction eventually by essentially posting enough engaging content organically and hopefully driving traffic to your website like that. And again, hopefully you do both, and we'll get into that as well. You obviously have email marketing. In any case, once you start doing paid and organic, hopefully people coming on your website, you start collecting emails, which is also obviously very classic, and I'm not going to spend much time on that. We, for example, use Klaviyo, which is very common for Shopify, but obviously you should also do email marketing. I mean, it's actually more remarketing, right? Although you can also send emails to new customers as well, and that's a bit of a separate topic. You have affiliate marketing. We use GoF Pro on our website. We also use external affiliate platforms for that. You obviously have influencer marketing. Again, influencer marketing doesn't need to be like classic, Instagram influencers. It can, again, now be on TikTok. It can be anywhere. It can be people who are even writing blogs or reviews about, your kind of niche. It can really be any sort of person who already has some sort of audience and some sort of following, regardless on which platform, that you can kind of partner up with and pay them on, either on a per post basis, where again, it also ultimately boils down to you paying them on a CPM basis, right? Just again, how expensive is it going to be to show your ad to 1,000 people if the influencer does it on your behalf, versus you directly spending those marketing dollars on the channels. And of course, you have SEO, on-site, off-site. I'm not going to touch on that. That's a bit of a longer game as well. Probably not where you're going to start off. And anyway, if you get enough traffic and traction over time, your SEO will also improve automatically. And other, I put in other again also as an umbrella term. Why? Because I think you always need to be kind of looking out what's out there, being on the frontier, right? There's obviously many other things I didn't mention. You can go on Pinterest. You can you can discover all kinds of, even like all kinds of different ways to advertise, even within Google, right? I mean, you have shopping campaigns and you have display campaigns and you have all kinds of remarketing campaigns that are different, right? So I think the point is always to keep your eyes open, like see where the attention is flowing to, right? I mean, very classically, we just had a pretty big shift, I would say, from Facebook and Instagram to TikTok over the last couple of years. And then, again, YouTube Shorts now competing with TikTok in terms of that kind of shorter attention span type of content, right? So you have those general macro trends, which I think a lot of people have already said a lot of things about, but obviously keeping an eye out on those is also crucial, right? And the point is trying to diversify across those as much as possible. Now, how does this actually look in practice, right? Because I think this is all a bit of like BS theory, but I'll actually talk about the way we actually track our marketing, we do this weekly report. And I'll talk a little bit about attribution, which isn't the sexiest topic, but I think extremely important. And also the reason why I think a lot of stores struggle to scale, to really maximize their marketing spend, because it is tricky if you have multiple channels to really understand where the conversion value is coming from. What you see here is actually, again, this store that I showed you, the first store, where what we do on a weekly basis is we literally write down every single, so this is a screenshot from an Excel, but we write down every single every single channel and platform where we spent marketing dollars to advertise our products. And we literally put the cost, the conversion value, and the ROAS, right? So just the return on ad spend for every single of those platforms. And we do this week by week, right? And every week we can essentially track exactly what's going on, right? So this isn't perfect, but it gives you an idea, right? So for this, and again, we're not running, so like this is a random week from 1st to 7th of July. So, that, and let me actually pull up, this is this store. Let me pull up, I'll just pull up July. So you can see in July, we made slightly above 200,000. Obviously, yeah, this week was, let me actually just zoom into the first week. So that was definitely a good week. And so for that week, we made around 90K in revenue. And on Shopify, you obviously just see the total revenue, right? And what obviously Shopify doesn't tell you, and they're still actually, unfortunately, pretty bad at telling you the exact split in terms of the marketing channels, right? Like there's a marketing channel report for Shopify, but it's not very accurate because they have a hard time splitting between organic and paid and things like Klaviyo and TikTok and Snapchat and etc. But what we essentially do, right, is run Facebook, Google ads. Then Klaviyo is our email, is just the email platform that we use. So that's email. And obviously we have TikTok and Snapchat, which this week we were not running for the store, therefore they're empty. Organic, which is again posting organically on all the channels. So this is also a bit of a kind of umbrella section. Then we have affiliate. We have our affiliate channel. Then we have our influencers, and then we have other. And again, with other, and again, depending on what we're doing with a given store, we'll obviously expand this, right? The point is, in one table, we can track all of our marketing channels, compare the split, right? So here you can see kind of the revenue split coming from different channels and the different ROAS, right? Now, actually, some of those numbers are not fully up to date. Like here, there should be a number. Anyway, there is also a cost associated to affiliate because we pay them commissions. So it's not high, but there should definitely be a cost here. So that's a mistake on our side. In any case, what we then do, and I think that's where things kind of get interesting in terms of attribution, is we have the Shopify revenue here, right? The 93,000, as you saw. Here it's 92, so I'm not quite sure what the difference is. Maybe the dates are slightly off. But in any case, we have the Shopify revenue. Then we have the Google Analytics revenue. Google Analytics, obviously, if you go to, exactly, for this store, so this is from July to August. Anyway, if you go to acquisition overview, again, Google, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Google Analytics. If not, then they'll tell you, for example, here the revenue, and also the split in terms of channels. But you see, and again, there's many different ways to kind of organize your Google Analytics to be more accurate, but still it doesn't do a good job in terms of really telling you exactly where the channels, where the sources are coming from, unless you're like very on point with your UTMs. And that's quite a pain in the ass, to be honest. But like you can see here with us even setting up a lot of the stuff up initially and having like all, we have like the whole e-commerce, how's it called again? Like we have the special e-commerce conversion settings and all of that stuff. You can see that here 55% is just from other, right? Which isn't very helpful. In any case, we just take the conversion value from our Google Analytics as a comparison, right? And then we take the conversion value from all the individual sources. So we literally go into our Facebook Business Manager, we check our conversion value, we put it here. We go to our Google account manager, we take the conversion value from there, and then we add up all of them. And what you see, right, is an interesting discrepancy, right, which is very common for most stores, which is that the Shopify revenue we're making, like our real revenue, is different from the sum of the conversion value from all the different marketing channels for the exact same time period, right? If we would just trust what Facebook and Google and Klaviyo are telling us, right, in terms of how much they believe we are getting in conversion value, right, we should have actually made over 100,000 in revenue, but in reality we only made 93,000, right? So that's the difference of minus 9%, a difference in almost 9K. Why is there this difference, and why does this difference fluctuate? So I'm going to show you a few other examples of why this fluctuates, and I think it's important to understand, right? It is because of attribution, right? And there's a few classic examples. One classic example is that a conversion overlaps between two or more channels. So for example, you run a TikTok ad of your product. Someone sees your TikTok ad, they think it's interesting, but they're kind of suspicious. So they Google the name of your store on Google. Then your Google search, your brand search ad hopefully pops up because you have a brand search ad on Google Ads if someone types in your store name. They press on that. Then they go on your website. They check out your product page, but then, I don't know, they add to cart, but then they drop off. They don't actually buy. But because they added to cart and they already completed the first part of the checkout, you have their email, right? So a week later, or a couple days later, or whatever, you send them an email campaign, and then they finally convert, right? And then the question is, okay, so where does the conversion actually belong to? Like, did TikTok create the conversion? Did the Google ad, the Google brand search ad create the conversion, or did the email campaign create the conversion, right? And depending on the window of when this conversion happens, two or more of those channels might actually take the credit themselves, and Google might say, no, this is fully our conversion. TikTok might say this is our conversion, right? And Klaviyo might as well, or sometimes not, right? So there are a lot of issues that come from that, right? And that's why you kind of have an overlap where you can see that essentially some of the ROAS figures here are inflated, right? So apparently on Facebook, we made a 2.49 ROAS that week. On Google, a 3.59. On Klaviyo, 107. And email is obviously always high ROAS because you're already sending emails to people who've bought. So it's a remarketing thing, and you should always expect your email. And again, email is also for free, essentially not for free. We have a cost of obviously paying Klaviyo the subscription, so we include the subscription costs here, all the stuff. But the point is, those ROAS figures are inflated, and you have to be careful, right? Especially if you're kind of on edge in terms of break-even ROAS, right? On across all of your marketing channels, you need to be careful not to spend too much because you might actually be unprofitable because of this attribution issue, right? And I think this is a very common issue that people, spend a lot of money thinking that they're profitable with like a 2.5 ROAS because their break even is a 2.4, but in reality they're actually making a 2.3, and then they're unprofitable. And if you don't track it week to week, you might actually miss those nuances, and those are small nuances. You can then see we also cross-check. So the whole point here is we triangulate through as many sources as possible, right? And there's actually even other sources. You can really also work aggressively with UTMs. It is a pain. This is kind of like the fast. This honestly doesn't take too long if you kind of set this up, where you take the revenue from Shopify. This is like the real revenue you made. You then check Google Analytics, which obviously has also its way of tracking your sales as much as possible. And then you go through every single channel and you triangulate. Do they match? If not, where is the gap? And you adjust based on that gap, which is very important to do. We also use Lifetimely to track our profitability, separate video on that. But here you can just see a summary of our blended CAC and our blended ROAS, right? So again, this store, we actually spend something like, that week we spent $60 per acquiring each customer, right? This sounds like a lot, but for this store, average order value is $180, right? So that's what explains the 3.3 ROAS, right, for that week. And again, the 3.6 for, those dates are slightly off, but anyway, you get the point. Because of the AOV, we are actually, if we're below a 60 cost per acquisition, then we're in good shape. And this is really what I want to bring your attention to, is like this attribution issue at the very stage, because I think it's important to track and to understand that. And I think that's actually, by actually tracking this consistently, we're able to kind of be much more conscious of where we should be aggressive and where not, right? And obviously what you see here is like there's a lot of missing line items here, which means we're actually not diversified enough, right? For this store, we did do TikTok, and we are doing TikTok now. So we're now also focusing a lot on organic and TikTok. We're not doing Snapchat actually. We've definitely also run some influencers, and we're doing that now as well. And we're exploring with many other channels as well. And obviously, you would be in the strongest possible position if you had this entire table filled up with, I don't know, like 7 or 8 different channels with a very nice distributed split, where no matter what happens, if again your Facebook business manager gets shut down, worst case tomorrow, you still have 6 other channels that you can rely on. And that's obviously what I think you should aim for. Now, another store, and this store I didn't even show in this video, but I'll definitely use it for other examples and other videos, is a store that's much, much smaller. So this week it only made actually 5K. I mean, so like literally it's another small store that we have. But why I chose to also show you the attribution here is that here the ROAS is actually more than 40% different, right? So our essentially marketing channels show us that we made a 6.8 ROAS, whereas in reality we almost made a 12 ROAS. And this store is a bit of a unique one because you can see that the volumes are slow, but our ROAS is extremely high, right? So also again, cross-checking with Lifetimely, we're literally making some weeks of 14 ROAS, and that's because we have a lot of customers that come back. So our returning customer rate is extremely high. And we also have a lot of organic sales, which actually we don't track here because we can't even track them, but we just have organic sales, which ultimately help us, just drive Google traffic into some of our, also, to be honest, into some of our brand search campaigns at extremely cheap costs, inflating this ROAS quite a bit. But you can see that sometimes sometimes you have only a minus 9% difference, and sometimes you actually have a 40% difference. The difference can also be the other way around, right? So what we see here actually is our marketing channels. This is actually, so there's a small mistake here in terms of negative. This should also be positive. This should be a positive 42%. But the point is here we have another store, also very small in this week, but our marketing channels actually show that we were unprofitable because the break-even ROAS of this product is something like a 2.1 or a 2.2. If we just look at our Facebook and Google and Klaviyo and so on and so forth, you should draw the conclusion that you are unprofitable. But in reality, if we look at our real sales, we actually are profitable, right? And that means that we should continue running those marketing campaigns. And that means there's some sales coming that we are not able to track, right? So then the question is, where are those sales coming from? And essentially learning how you're able to then track them and just becoming good at that. Anyway, so I wanted to touch upon on the attribution issue because I think it's an important one, and we'll continue with actually talking about how you can improve your marketing. Hey, before you bounce, consider subscribing to our channel, but only if you've actually enjoyed the video and found at least a few valuable things for your Shopify store. Also check out our free Shopify app, Trackidex. We have a link in the description below. We're developing new features literally every day, and we're also excited to actually hear your feedback on some of the next features we should develop. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.